My name is Dave Milner. I am the Unpleasant Blind Guy. As we look back 15 years to the 9/11 attack, this is a time when you'll be hearing many extra special 9/11 remembrance programs. What I want to do is look at the focus of 9/11 and how it has changed. We all know how it began on a clear and hot morning in most of the United States.
One from Manhattan.
Italian 1.
We just had a plane crash into Level 4 of the World Trade Center, transmit a second alarm, and start relocating companies into the area.
10-4, Battalion 1.
To interrupt you right now.
Sorry.
Richard Hack, thank you very much. We appreciate the book is called Hughes. We want to go live right now and show you a picture of the World Trade Center where I understand, do we have it? No, we do not. We have a breaking story, though. We're going to come back with that in just a moment. First, this is Today on NBC.
As mentioned, we have a breaking news story to tell you about. Apparently, a plane has just crashed into the World Trade Center here in New York City. It happened just a few moments ago, apparently. We have very little information available at this point in time.
It's 8:52 here in New York. I'm Bryant Gumbel. We understand that there has been a plane crash on the southern tip of Manhattan. You're looking at the World Trade Center. We understand that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center. We don't know anything more than that. We don't know if it was a commercial aircraft. We don't know if it was a private aircraft. We have no idea how many were on board or what the extent of the injuries are right now.
We want to tell you what we know as we know it. We just got a report in that there's been some sort of explosion at the World Trade Center in New York City. One report said, and we can't confirm any of this, that a plane may have hit one of the two towers of the World Trade Center. But again, you're seeing the live pictures here. We have no further details than that. We don't know anything about what they have concluded happened there this morning, but we're going to find out and, of course, make sure that everybody knows on the air.
These are, of course, the two twin Trade Center buildings that are down at the foot of Manhattan, that they really are the beacons of New York. It was there that there was the explosion a couple of years ago brought about by terrorists. That's all gone through the courts, but this we don't know anything about. We don't know about anything that has happened here other than the fact that there's obviously been a major incident there, and we're going to go to a special report now from ABC News.
Number 2.
Yeah. This just in, you were looking at obviously a very disturbing live shot there. That is the World Trade Center, and we have unconfirmed reports this morning that a plane has crashed into one of the towers of the World Trade Center. The CNN Center right now is just beginning to work on this story, obviously calling our sources and trying to figure out exactly what happened, but clearly something relatively devastating happening this morning there on the south end of the island of Manhattan.
Welcome back to Fox News. We have a very tragic alert for you right now. An incredible plane crash into the World Trade Center here at the lower tip of Manhattan.
It's believed a 737 has crashed into. There's speculation at this point, but at least 3 floors taken out, crashed into the side of the building.
Welcome back to the program. We've got some breaking news to tell you about something we're just learning about ourselves here. Apparently, a small passenger plane has crashed into one of the World Trade Towers. This, of course, in Manhattan, New York City. These are live shots we are just getting right now from some American networks sending these up. I was just listening to an interview which was being done by an eyewitness. I'm going strictly by what this person has said, that said they saw a plane that appeared flying with some distress at a very low altitude that just collided, as you can see. He's estimating we're at the 80th or 85th floor of one of the World Trade Towers there. This has just happened. We don't know any reports about injuries for that matter, although we could only assume that there would be in an event like this. Not exactly sure how large the plane was. The person thought it was a commercial jet that actually collided. We can see the fire there. This is just a horrific scene, if you can imagine what is going on there right now.
In the United Kingdom, it was early afternoon, and the BBC and Sky News reported it this way.
And we're getting reports of a plane crash in the World Trade Center in New York. You can see the pictures there. It's one of New York's tallest buildings. That's all the information we know at the moment, but as you can see, it is a considerable collision, and there is a large fire. That's all the information we have at the moment, but we'll be back with more details in just a short while at the top of the hour.
Now, some very, very sketchy details reaching us here at Sky Centre. Important enough to bring to you, though, at this early stage. We believe that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center in New York. That happened within the last few moments. No details at this stage as to what sort of plane it is. It could well be a large plane. We are hearing reports of a 737 not yet confirmed yet, although it is a jet. More as we have it.
By the end of the day, the news had flashed around the world, as you'll hear in this coverage from National 9 News in Australia.
The death toll from this tragedy is still anyone's guess. Many thousands were in the World Trade Center. About 300 firemen and another 100 police are missing after going to help. Up to 800 could have died at the Pentagon and at least 200 on the 4 planes.
Americans truly believe that today someone, some group, declared war on them. As they watched the horror of it all unfold before them on television, the country went on a warlike footing.
The nation was on a war footing, banded together as only an attack from the outside can achieve.
I've directed the full resources of our intelligence and law enforcement communities to find those responsible and to bring them to justice. We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them. America and our friends and allies join with all those who want peace and security in the world, and we stand together to win the war against terrorism. This is a day when all Americans from every walk of life unite in our resolve for justice and peace. America has stood down enemies before, and we will do so this time. None of us will ever forget this day, yet we go forward to defend freedom and all that is good and just in our world. This generation will lift a dark thread of violence from our people and our future. We will rally the world to this cause by our efforts, by our courage. We will not tire, we will not falter, and we will not fail.
But even as we declared our solidarity as a nation to fight the war on terror, progressives in the political class were already moving to change the focus.
I also want to speak tonight directly to Muslims throughout the world. We respect your faith. It's practiced freely by many millions of Americans and by millions more in countries that America counts as friends. Its teachings are good and peaceful, and those who commit evil in the name of Allah blaspheme the name of Allah. The terrorists are traitors to their own faith, trying in effect to hijack Islam itself. The enemy of America is not our many Muslim friends.
As people began learning more and more about the history and ideology of Islam, progressive-infused government and a compliant media were working to change the focus of the 9/11 attacks from those that killed thousands to those that target hundreds or fewer people and even individuals. As the years went by and we elected a new president, the United States government began its open support for the Islamization of the entire civilized world.
The future must not belong to those who slander the Prophet of Islam.
This process, though well underway, has been slow in the United States of America, but it has proceeded at an accelerated rate throughout Europe and the United Kingdom, as you will hear in excerpts from this video titled UK, Rise of the Police State by Black Pigeon Speaks.
Around the Western world, freedom that has for centuries been fought for and paid in the blood and lives of those whose ancestors are native to the West is collapsing. No, not collapsing, imploding. Freedom of thought, freedom of opinion, freedom of expression are all under serious assault. And if you thought things couldn't get much worse, you'd be wrong. Governments at every level work with the courts and media while using the police as enforcers of approved state opinion and are running roughshod over the corpse of what was once the free and democratic West. In Canada, the Supreme Court has ruled that truth is no defense when it comes to offending others. Truthful statements can be presented in a manner that would meet the definition of hate speech, and not all truthful statements must be free from restriction. In Sweden, there have been so many cover-ups by the media and police of sexual assaults by incoming Muslim migrants, or as they are called in the media, new Swedes, that it's difficult to know where to begin. In fact, I've recently made an entire video on how the media, as well as the authorities of Sweden, have now in fact blamed Swedish women for being raped en masse by Muslim migrants. In Germany, a coordinated effort by the authorities working with social media to quash, penalize, and label any dissent as quote-unquote hate speech is a program that even former members of the East German Secret Police, or Stasi, find breathtaking in its sophistication and in the wide net that it casts. Also, at the same time, the media, police, and authorities have repeatedly attempted to cover up the appalling amount of sexual violence being carried out by Muslim migrants upon German women and children. In this video, I've gone into detail on how the Muslim sexual rampage is affecting all of Europe, as well as Germany in particular. But it is in the UK and the lengths to which the state is going to keep a lid on the powder keg that 19 years of importing vibrant diversity wholesale has created, and is by far the most disturbing. Tony Blair's desire to forever change the face of the UK has succeeded, and with very corrosive results. And authorities have had to come up with ever more draconian laws to keep the natives from expressing their discontent, as well as pretend that there is anything even approaching community cohesion in many parts of the country. The UK is a magnet for Islamist hate preachers, as well as a playground for Muslim men to satisfy their urges with easy meat. In the UK, its authorities, councils, police, and media have aided and abetted the grooming, raping, torturing, and in some cases, murder of native girls, some as young as 12, by packs of Muslim men. Grooming gangs have been identified in Rochdale, Derby, Oxford, Bristol, Telford, Peterborough, Banbury, and many others. But the most famous is Rotherham, where grooming, raping, trafficking, and pimping of thousands of girls was allowed to go on unimpeded by the police for over a decade for fear of being called racist. And the systematic rape of children by Muslim men is still being carried out in Rotherham on an industrial scale to this day. Given the collusion of the media and authorities, speaking out against these atrocities has given one man the label of an enemy of the state, and this man is Tommy Robinson. Mr. Robinson was instrumental in organizing opposition to the Islamization in England via street protests carried out by the English Defence League. While the middle and upper classes show their inherent disgust for those they feel are their social inferiors, class does make a large difference by way of who must endure the day-to-day experience of living with the fruits of vibrant diversity that have been foisted upon the working classes in England, but also in the entire Western world. The EDL has been vilified by the media, and its disgust of the unwashed masses is regularly disseminated by leftist news outlets like The Guardian and the BBC. Its former leader, Tommy Robinson, who is now associated with the UK branch of the German organization Pegida, or Patriotic Europeans Against the Islamization of the West, has been a one-man example of the state's abuse of power in its drive to force unwanted millions and their incompatible culture on the historic majority population in the UK, and to make sure they remain groveling and under heel. In his book, Enemy of the State, Robinson presents a horrifying picture of the entire apparatus of the state power being directed at shutting down political speech and basic rights such as freedom of assembly and peaceful protest. And now this, his freedom of association, and in fact his liberty of movement, has now not only been impeded, he risks imprisonment by simply traveling through cities within his own country. On the 27th of August 2016, Mr. Robinson was ejected from the city of Cambridge and threatened with criminal charges for watching a football match in a pub with his 3 young children, all aged under 10, and some friends. When Mr. Robinson protested that he was with his family and that no other Luton supporters were being ejected, another officer accused him of acting aggressively and told him, "You're going to get arrested in a minute." The manager for pub security staff intervened and told the police that he, his children, and his group were just watching the game and were not causing any trouble, and nothing unlawful had taken place.
I'm the area manager for a security company. The group that you're throwing out have been in the Prince Regent today with their children. Caused no problems at all in there. So come in here, spoken to my head of security. He's saying that they've not...
Facing arrest for watching a football match with his children, Robinson elected to leave, but was followed down the road by 4 officers that told him, "We're following you, and there's no way out of that," causing his young children, all under the age of 10, to cry in terror.
Right, okay, we're following you, there's no way out of that.
You think we need safety of two kids? Hey, darling, come here. Come here, darling, it's all right. Come here, sweetheart, it's all right. Girls, it's all right, come here. Come here.
Let that last part sink in. These officers, agents of the state, being paid via the public purse, are now empowered to approach, harass, detain, and arrest citizens in public spaces, but also on private property, who are not engaged in any political activity and without any due process. If this is not state harassment, intimidation, and abuse of authority, I do not know what is. The man is not allowed to go anywhere or do anything, even with his children, without police coming to find him and threaten him with arrest. This climate is being normalized in not only the UK, but in many countries across the Western world. Freedom of conscience, belief, opinion, speech, association, freedom of movement. None of these freedoms will be upheld by the authorities if you disavow the approved state political opinions. It doesn't matter where you lie on the political spectrum. This overreach of government authority that is glossed over and manipulated by a pliant and traitorous media class should frighten everyone, least of all because of the implications when taken to their logical conclusion. One only need to look at the setting and those present and the fact that it was only Mr. Robinson that was forced to leave. I might also add that the game he was watching was between Manchester United and Hull City. No, it's clear. This is political harassment being carried out by agents of the state. The police in countries as far afield as Canada, Sweden, Germany, but especially the UK, have now shown themselves for what they are, enforcers, not of the law, but of the doctrines and dogma of the political and media classes. They can exert time, energy, and labor on policing Twitter comments, or on offensive Facebook comments, on limiting speech and conscience. They can abuse, harass, and persecute a man quietly watching a football match with his children and friends, and in effect exile him from an entire city within his own country. But they cannot protect little girls from systematic rape by gangs of Pakistani Muslims. No, scratch that. They have ignored the pleas for help from the families of the girls raped for decades, as has the political and media class, as they have also the activities of Islamist hate preachers and jihadist recruiters. We're now beginning to witness the breakdown of the social contract. The organs of the state, the police, judiciary, political, and controlled media classes are now in open contempt for those they mean to rule. And given this trajectory, the people will respond in due course.
People, I encourage you to go to YouTube, find that video, and share it around. Because at this point, and as you heard, for the past generation, non-Muslim girls, boys, adults, homosexuals, basically anyone that the growing populations of Muslims in the civilized world do not like are increasingly under attack on a personal level. You see, as our governments have aided in the Islamization of the civilized world, the pattern started in Mecca and Medina in the Middle East has reached home. And if you think I'm only fear-mongering, witness the fact that according to a report, the U.S. Muslim population has nearly tripled in a decade. A 2010 survey showed the Muslim population in the United States has risen from about 1 million to about 2.6 million in 10 years. and that figure is taken from 2012, before the so-called Syrian refugee crisis. Since that time, President Barack Hussein Obama has been busy. According to a report by the Associated Press, published August the 29th, the United States has met the target set by President Obama for admitting 10,000 Syrian refugees. Almost all fit Muslim men of military age, and almost no Christians or people of any other faith who face persecution of the most horrific kind in the Middle East on a daily basis. And as for the future, presidential candidate Donald Trump says that he wants to halt immigration from certain areas until proper and trustworthy vetting procedures can be set up. While his opposition, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, wants a 550% increase in the number of Muslim immigrants into the United States of America. This has been confirmed by the left-leaning organization PolitiFact. Now let's be sure we understand what we're talking about, people, when we give these numbers. The raw numbers you hear, 100,000 refugees, is not just 100,000 refugees. Remember that once these individuals are established in our cities and in our small towns, as President Obama has cleverly disseminated them without consulting state governors, by the way, they will be able to bring over their quote-unquote families. This will include, of course, their wives, their quote-unquote cousins, who are actually wives, and others. So one Muslim who will not even consider assimilating to the inclusive culture of the United States of America will become 4. And after a few years of having children, possibly 10 or more. So take any number of Muslim immigrants that you hear that have been allowed to come to this country and multiply that by at least 10. Because that's what you'll have within the first 5 to 10 years. And as has been proven in history throughout the Middle East, once populations of Muslims reach a certain density, they stop being the friendly neighbors that people welcome to their countries. As Jeff Mitchell of the English Defense League radio program says, they begin demanding an apartheid where they can rule themselves. They demand that Sharia be respected by the governments in whatever country they find themselves in, and they demand that those countries, under the cover of diversity, political correctness, and multiculturalism, enforce Sharia on the population that is already there. People, enough of you have heard my shows to where you know what my solution for this problem is. And for those who don't know, it is that Islam must be removed from the civilized world. No, I am not calling for the killing or physical harming of any Muslim. Almost all Muslims are loyal to one thing: Islam. They'll profess loyalty to the country that they're in only long enough to establish themselves in a large enough population to begin demanding that everyone else follow Sharia, or else. We see it happening in Europe. We see it happening in Canada and Australia. And we're starting to see it happen here in the United States of America. It's not even so much about the terrorist attacks that occur periodically here in our own country. It is about the everyday terror. The rapes, the beatings, the child sex slavery that our populations are being subjected to. And don't fool yourselves. The Muslim population in the United States of America is big enough to where the things that I mentioned are very likely happening here right now. They're just not being reported. If Muslims in Michigan feel confident enough to fly the ISIS flag out in the open in the United States of America, that is a clear signal that their population has reached a density to where they can begin doing what Muslims always do. I am frankly saddened for those very few Muslims who reject the evil that their ideology forces on everyone else. But we can no longer allow political correctness to kill us. We have to vote for candidates who will take positive action to end the personal 9/11 that continues to this day. That's it for this time. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for listening. May your God go with you, and may God go with the United States of America. Goodbye. The Unpleasant Blind Guy is copyright 2016 Anno Domini.